Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here after once again. So we will start. We're only going to start 5 minutes late. We stopped 10 minutes late, but we'll start 5 minutes. So we'll be good. Right. 2 sessions now. They're both local people, so they can introduce themselves. We have Tapio Kallio, who's going to talk about sound, pitch and hearing. And then after Eerola, who's going to talk about music analysis and cultural signification of music. What people need. That's all. So, I'm going to leave the floor to Tapio to start. Tapio, were you from the Jazz Academy?
I'm from the Pop and Jazz Conservatory.
Yeah.
I'm a vice principal there, and I'm inviting you all to join us there tomorrow.
He's our host tomorrow.
Oh, yes. Well, welcome.
Esa asked me whether we could run this thing together, and I said, all right. And then I made a mistake. I answered his phone call in a tram. And he asked, how is it going? And I said, I read an interesting book now the other day, and I've been thinking about it, and told him some things about it. And he said, now I know, I was going to ask you to give a presentation at the seminar. And now you have a subject there also. I never answer
My calls ever.
at least on tram.
Yes, you've been doing very well with that department. Yes.
Well, consider me local, but I was born 1,400 kilometers from here in Lapland, northernmost part of Finland. So I'm an immigrant here. And just this morning I changed the headline of my presentation, which was also a result of 5 minutes of thinking, or not thinking. Hearing is what it's all about in this question. And when we've been talking here today about the different kind of contributions, different sources of research can bring to music studies and music analysis also, and cultural studies, I sort of want to ask myself and you also that what do we have to learn from neurobiologic research? And this is what I present. Esa asked me to, and actually he asked everybody to give a short presentation of themselves, who they are. So here's myself in a nutshell. As you can see, oh, you can see.
Yes.
I was born in Utsjoki, Lapland. I became a guitar player in 1970 when I got my first guitar. At least ever since then I've been wanting to become a guitar player, but I'm a guitar owner. 75, I count my career as a professional musician started in 1975. That was the first time I performed in a public dance for money. And realized that you can make a living this way, but I realized that for me it wasn't much of a living, but it was great. And the greatest experiences in making music in my life still belong to those times in small villages, playing popular dance music for people who wanted to celebrate. And the feeling, our singer was a lumberjack. There were 2 lumberjacks in the group, one blacksmith and one unemployed man, and then this 16-year-old gymnast with the long hair and progressive music enthusiasm. And we played tangos and polkas and marches and waltzes mainly. And the lumberjack who was singing, he had and still has a wonderful natural baritone voice, and I sort of got into the kind of situation that one of the hippie would never have got in those days. Being in these little dance halls where people, both the performers and the audience and the dancers, are playing and dancing to the kind of music they love the best, and probably also the only music they know. And the sense of community and celebration and unity I still have not found anywhere else. That's why I go there every midsummer now for 3 years in a row, which means it's an endless tradition. to play with these same guys that I played in the 70s. I became a teacher at the Pop and Jazz Conservatory in 1983, teaching first guitar. Then, after graduating from Helsinki Conservatory, where I studied also, I started as a music theory teacher in Pop and Jazz Conservatory. Got bored of that, went to study in the Sibelius Academy for 2 years. Then I realized I have to go back to work to make a living and support my family. But I finally got my master's in music in 1999, but then I was asked to become a vice principal of the vocational studies, and I've been there ever since. And you can sort of guess my email address there, but I think Esa will send you all the presentations, if possible, if somebody wants them.
Of course. We can actually do that for
very good.
that presentation. Very good.
I published, as a result of my studies, 2 articles, mainly concerning metrical structure and Sibelius's music. And for me it was a kind of puzzlement, both from the fact that originally I learned music by ear. And I never played classical music very much, except those obligatory guitar studies when studying music theory. But I was interested in orchestral music, and if some of you ever have been wondering why in Sibelius's 2nd and 3rd symphony and the violin concerto there are movements that begin with a half measure of music. So if that puzzles one like it did me, then in these articles the answers may be found. They have to do with Sibelius reworking his music. The original versions, manuscript versions or first performance versions, did have material in the first half measure of the composition or the movement. But he omitted music from later on and moved. I have to be careful, you are looking music from that side. He omitted music from there in between and then moved music half a measure later. And there are some interesting things you can find out there, but they were very short, as you can see, 3 pages. The next one, so if somebody's interested, I can send a scanned article and so. But no more of that. Why am I here? I thought about the telephone call. Esa faced me, and I told him that I've been reading this funny book, because after those classical music studies and being a rock, dance band music, rock music, and especially jazz music player in the 80s, I got sort of tired of that. I quit playing professionally in 92 and didn't much play guitar either. But I was interested in vocal music and ethnic original vocal music where there's no instrumentation. The kind of music you might hear in the outer Hebrides. And I found out this book, Kun on oikein hulivilli luonto, Pentti Virrankosken kauhavalaiset ottamat vanhat laulut. Pentti Virrankoski learned in his childhood from the local area people, including his mother, songs. He later became a professor in this university. But then he decided at his old age to publish this collection of these songs. He knew the lyrics and the melodies. Somebody transcribed them for him and Jyväskylä University Musicology professor Emeritus Timo Leitsio made analyses on these songs. And they were quite interesting, the songs I made, and the analysis also, because they sort of motivated me to find out this next book, which I recommend warmly. Gerhard Lanner, The Neural Code of Pitch and Harmony, published by Cambridge University, June 30th, last summer. I got the book on Tuesday, then after I had ordered it. And to know more about him, he's a neurobiologist. Very strict German physics studies on a very high level. And his specialty is neurobiology, and he's been doing for decades the kind of research, along with other people, of how you take a guinea pig or a chinchilla and open its head and put electrodes in there and play sounds to the animal and measure the reactions, chemical and electrical reactions in the cells, hearing cells, and also in the brain. And what kind of measurements and ideas from that can be thought I sort of collected. And I take responsibility for all the mistakes. I'm not a neurobiologist. And to say the truth, it's very tiring to read a book full of formulas and calculations and stuff like that. But that's a very nice and useful introduction part where the theories and practices of neurobiological and hearing and sound and music are introduced. All this material in the following few slides, I think you agree that if you have students, but they already know that. But let's take this as a short run through. Sound. Vibration in a medium, air, water, or stuff like that, that's what happens outside your head. And when those vibrations somehow reach the ear, they go through the air and, or ear, I always do it, go through the ear and into the brain, and then they are developed. And then we say, oh, I heard a sound. And of course, sounds are acoustic signals, originally either non-periodic with irregular repetitions or periodic with regular repetitions. And as musicians, we are also very interested in the regular repetitions. On a lower frequency rate, we talk of rhythm, or beats or rhythm, and on higher scale or higher frequencies, we talk of pitches. And those neuronal circuits in the brains of various animals are developed and adjusted to detect periodic signals and then perform a neuronal periodic analysis. I don't have the slightest idea how that's done, but Gerhard Langer explains it in his book very carefully. I have to read it another time. If the regular sound events are repeated regularly, and if there are more than 16 per second, the human hearing systems is able to determine the repetition rate. When you can't count them, but you know the rate, and you call the pitch. Now in the hearing system, the period of frequencies, and it's very simplified now, activates a sensor cell, a neural cell that responds to that certain pitch. And that pitch also activates other sensory cells that multiply the period. Very well-known subject. You hear a pitch like this, then it's doubled, tripled, quadrupled, quintupled, and so on. And we call it the harmonic series in the outside world, where the vibrating objects function. And that activation of multiplicating the fundamental pitch, or the period that in the brain, that they sort of detect the possible harmonics and make out the timbre of the voice in question, or the pitch in question. Like I've just showed, and you all already today discussed it, the harmonics of the fundamental produce the major chord. And this, finding out of this was very important, of course, But as you know that even to go further than these 5 first harmonics and the major chords, it became very much a subject of common interest for the 19th century composers. You think about guys like Alexander Scriabin, well, he lived until the 20th century, of course, but he dedicated much time to finding out the harmonic series in the piano and to work on it. He even made some pieces where he very carefully studies how the 13th harmonic, the major 13th, and well, 13th harmonic isn't the major 13th, it's the minor, closer to the minor 13th. But so orchestration, instrument building, music theory, and compositional practices of the change of the century, they talked and experimented a lot with the harmonic series and the older tones. Sibelius himself was very much attracted. He claimed to his students that when I'm standing in front of a wheat field, I can hear the overtones of the sound of the wind in the wheat field. And at least he said so we don't need to doubt it. But the idea was that because it's outside, it's natural, it's a product of nature, it's something more than human invention, aesthetic qualities and things like that. Further to the neural cells. It's funny, but according to these measurements of the neurobiologists, a neural cell, there are huge, well, they must be very small, but there are more than 30 levels of those neural cells. For each pitch that's available, I believe. But they also, in addition to these activations of the cells above the pitch in question, they activate neural cells below the pitch in question. They are not multiplications, but they are subdivisions. Like if you play C, and there's, I'll take note there. These respond to the tuning of the piano, of course. Then subdivided by 2, by 3, by 4, by 5. And when pitch like this sounds, and the lower neural cells are activated, the activation stays for a while. And if following pitch, like in a sung melody, belongs to these lower subharmonic series, they don't replace the old one that's already in the register, but they sort of intensify it. Now this structure of the series of tones subdivided by integers, the pitch subdivided with integers, was suggested already by Zarlino. There must be something like that, he claimed. And Hugo Riemann also said that there should be a source for the minor chord somewhere. It may be that it's subjective and we hear it, but we sort of felt the need. But this, people were not able to locate. In the measure, you take a guitar, you put the strings, you divide the string by half, in 4, in 3, and so on. It's easy to find out, oh, there are harmonics, you can hear them, they sound, it's outside. But when the situation happens inside your cells, in your hearing, it's very difficult to believe that there even is such a thing because you can't see it. Nowadays we have grown to appreciate that microscopes and neurobiologists and things like that do know something about the construction of human organs. But so here is what I just said, that at the old time it was not subharmonic cells could not be detected physically. And even nowadays, very often you just need to consult Wikipedia for subharmonic series. It says, refers to, quotes several music analysts and theoretics, and that say that this is a full-fledged fantasy dreamworld thing. There is no such thing as subharmonic series. It belongs to the great subjective realm. But neurobiological research now implies that there may be, they have discovered signs that this kind of things do happen, these cell activations and minor key activation, minor chord activation happens in chinchillas, guinea pigs, whales, and very probably also humans, because the system of the hearing system is similar. There's no fundamental difference. But what does this mean? And this is sort of the question I wanted to bring here. And I was very happy to hear you, Philip, in your lecture this morning, to point out the fact that the minor key, or the minor pentatonic scale, is very often can be discovered melodies of people who in the areas where people do not have instruments. They don't play instruments, they don't hear instruments, they don't have anything like a string that is sounded, or a violin, or a broadcast on the television or internet. They sing, nevertheless, and they sing very often in structure that can be compared to this that I just played. The following one will be subdivided by 7. 8, 9. Roughly minor pentatonic scale. And of course, the concepts like major pentatonic or minor pentatonic are not, they don't mean too much, because the idea of a musician brings out, if this melody, I would accompany it with a minor chord, and thus we think that it's a minor melody, or a major chord. But the structure of the do pentatonic and the la pentatonic is they're just inversions of each other. And in these minor key melodies that people sing unaccompanied, they sort of bring out the sound that they hear from singing, maybe activates some neural cells and helps to keep in the key, and the sounds that are structured to according to this, or correspond to these neural cells. Maybe they are pleasing in some way. Aesthetically pleasing, or just pleasing to the ear. But in Irish, British, Nordic, Far East musics, Hungarian, ancient music, minor pentatonic scale, it's very important for singing. Now this might tell us something. I've been listening to recordings made in the 60s by, sorry, I don't know what, so I think I have done that. Finnish gypsies, ethnic gypsies, who came to Finland in the 16th century and have been living here ever since. Their traditional music is absolutely vocal, no instruments at all. They didn't possess them, they didn't use them, they didn't write them. And in the 60s, old recordings made of old people singing in the 60s sound that their melodies, sometimes they have characteristics of tonal melodies, or stuff like that. Very often the structure of the melody is based on maybe you could say, I don't like the word, but I say in minor pentatonic or pentatonic scale. In addition to that, there are some, I don't have examples with me, I can play them to you tomorrow if you're interested in at the school, but they're singing tradition, the flat second going down to the fundamental is always the penultimate sound, and it's very often tried to keep as long as possible. Now in the subharmonic series, the 11th subharmonic would be somewhere between the J flat, this was F minor chord, with the G and the G flat. But in a lower register, especially when men sing, with their loud and clear voices, they sort of dwell on the note for as long as possible. And it's a very interesting thing, I think. But I was also thinking that when the melodies, the vocal melodies that people perform in, like in the Appalachian style, accompanied by instruments, playing major scales, major chords, and melodies sung in minor scales. They don't sound bad at all, they sound very nice. Actually, every blues guitar player knows that this is what happens. You play a major chord and then you improvise in the minor key. Of course, any blues guitar player knows also that it's not the minor third that counts, but it's the slightly bent minor third that brings it closer to the subharmonic series, or the neutral third. And they sort of are the pitches that sound good. And the idea of having your guitar, your instrument, your harmony in major chord, and having a melody in a minor chord, why don't they clash? Well, just Charles Ives put it in a nice way. Who says that the organ and the church bells have to be in the same key? They belong to different realms. They are part of the same musical event, but they belong to different realms. The other one is outside in the harmonic world, and the other one is inside. And the sung melody interprets the way the subjective spent which may have something to do with the neural cells. I don't know about that, but I leave it open to research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a few. So you see, Es has something to say about the actual existence of external fundamentals, of distortion fundamentals in heavy metal, which are actually outside the head.
Yes.
Yeah. But which exist in the air as you play them.
Yeah, I know.
You
adopt them to us.
Yes, we talk about it. Yeah, well, I need to get that book as soon as possible, because if there's anything in neurological,
you can borrow
in that
Arska library. I ordered it now.
Yes, I will, because it will change the whole theory of harmony.
don't know about that.
Well, it should,
The theory
because
of harmony
the
will
concept.
always be musicologist.
It'll
Yeah.
it'll change the conventional.
Yes, of
view
course,
music.
of
It won't
course.
change my view of music at all.
Yeah, no worries. But it's interesting that many theorists since maybe 16th century have suggested such a concept. But as you said, you cannot measure them. Whole Riemannian concept was built around that, and later on proven wrong in a sense because by modern acoustics, because you cannot measure these. These are not acoustic phenomena. I mean the subharmonic series. But it's really interesting to know if it's in the neurological level of the human brain, as you suggested.
Okay, just quickly, because we're...
Sorry.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Have you stumbled into the studies by Japanese Ohashi and Nakamura and these people who have shown that there are also brain cells that activate in the ultrasound which are not heard, but they are cells, for example, in 30,000 hertz activate when you are in rainforest situation. There are ultrasounds there that go as high up as 100,000 hertz. So is this?
It's not familiar to me.
Yeah, but it's close. Well, it relates to this because you can, from the brain cell activity, you can show many things that are not, conventionally seen.
I was just thinking also to explain that I'm glad you use, I tend to use do and la pentatonic, but it always strikes me so strange that I play array pentatonic stuff, which is it's not uncommon in Appalachian and British coast melody. You sing that and they say, oh, that's in the minor key. I say, well, no, there's no third at all. So, so how come, I'm just saying that maybe, I think it's extremely important to take into consideration, but maybe the cultural formations are going to override like the Thai ability to laugh when things are very bad, which is intuitive skill for them. Things are shit, so you get, which we don't do. I think this can override, and the cultural practice will be quite different to what maybe like the bioacoustic universals might be. I think they can be overridden.
Absolutely. I think you're quite correct.
Okay, so I'm sorry, we have to go on because Eersa's here and I've got to do a good job, otherwise they'll throw me out.